Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Samrupa Kadamyam Tarati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Allahabad Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiksha Kamitamsha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Namaste Saraswati Gosvami Prabhupada Nirvishesha Adi Vaishya Desh Dharine He Krishna Karuna Chandra Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Vedanta Radha Vanta Namaste Saptakanchana Gaurange Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishvanu Sutta Devi Pranami Haripriye Pancha Kalptaru Vaishya Kripa Sindhu Titanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Hare Hare. Okay. Sharing my screen. Okay. This is second last chapter, no? Fifth chapter is going on, right? Fifth, no? Okay. Those who are practicing Krishna consciousness are in no need of material opulences. Wives, children, happiness, home, for all is acquired automatically by the grace of Krishna. There is no need to ask Krishna for these material things, but one should simply request him, please engage me in your service. In Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna also promises that if one engages in his service, he will supply what is needed and preserve whatever is already possessed. One of his final instructions to Arjuna indicates total dependence on him. Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matpara buddhi yogam upashitya matchitta satatam. In all activities and for their results, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Bhagavad Gita 18.5. So you're starting is the sixth chapter now.
Yes. So chapter 6, Transcending Designations and Problems. Krishna consciousness is easily achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, but only some are fortunate enough to have the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and his disciplic succession. According to Bhagavad Gita, Manushyam Sahasreshu Kaschad Yatati Siddhyaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tattvatah. Out of many thousands among man, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Bhagavad Gita 7.3.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Ishu. Krishna.
God realization is not possible for animals, or for persons who are almost animals, or for animals in the shape of human beings. Contemporary civilization is by in large an assembly of animals because, as stated before, it operates on the basis of the animal propensities. The bird and the beast arise early in the morning and busy themselves trying to find a food, insects, and trying to defend themselves. At night, they look for shelter, and in the morning, they fly to a tree to find nuts and fruits. Similarly, in New York City, great hordes of people travel from one island to another by ferry boat or wait for subways in order to go to the office for the purpose of finding food. How is this an advancement over animal life? Although the ferry and subway are always crowded, and many people have to travel 40 or 50 miles for bread, the birds are free to fly from one tree to another. Hare
Yes, Hare Krishna. Deepak Guru.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Real civilization is not concerned simply with man's animal needs, but with enabling man to understand his relationship with God, the Supreme Father. One may learn about his relationship with God by any process, through Christianity, through the Vedic literatures, or through the Quran. But in any case, it must be learned. The purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement is not to take Christians into Hindus or Hindus into Christians, but to inform everyone that the duty of a human being is to understand his relationship with God. One must learn this, otherwise he is simply wasting his time by engaging in animalistic propensity. We must all try to love Krishna or God. If one has a process, he should practice it, or he can come and learn this process. One, one should not begrudge the selection of one process over another. Visadapi amritam grahayam hamedhyadapi kanchanam nishadapi uttamam vidyam stri ratnam tuskhaladapi. Niti Darpan 1.16. Chanakya Pandit says that one must catch what is right from any source. If there is a glass of poison with some nectar in it, he says one should take out the nectar and leave the poison. In the same way, if one finds gold in a filthy place, he should take it. Similarly, although according to the Vedic system of education, one must be given instruction by intellectual intellectual person like Brahmanas. If someone lower on the social scale has learned the truth, one should accept him as a teacher and learn from him. One should not think that just because one is lovely born, he should not be accepted as a teacher.
Thank you, Dev. Kanapade?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Similarly, if one is serious about understanding God, he should not think I am Christian, I am Hindu, or I am Muslim. If one is serious about understanding love of God, he should consider which process is practical. One should not think, why should I follow Hindu or Vedic scriptures? The purpose of following the Vedic scriptures is to develop love of God. When students come to India for higher education, they do not
America.
consider
America,
the
when
fact
students go. Mhm.
they do not consider the fact that the teachers may be American, German, or of other nationalities. If one wants a higher education, he simply comes and takes it. Similarly, if there is an effective process for understanding and approaching God like this Krishna consciousness process, one should take it. Hare Krishna.
Swati.
Hare Krishna. Not all, but those who are intelligent and fortunate take to this process of devotional service, Kevalya Bhaktya, and their only desire is to serve Krishna. From early morning till late at night, the devotees are engaged in Krishna's service. This is called Kevalya, pure. For them, there is no other business. This process is recommended for all, and it is the perfection of all religious processes. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshade. In Sanskrit, there are two words, para and apara, which describe the superior, transcendental, and the inferior, material, approaches to religion. In the execution of material dharma or religion performed for material gain, people generally go to a church or a temple and pray, God, give us our daily bread. Actually, this need not be asked for bread is already provided for everyone. Even the birds and beasts get their bread without having to go to church to ask God for it. Similarly, our bread is also provided. Whether we go to church or not, that is not a problem. For no one is dying in the streets of starvation, nor do we find a bird, beast, or even an ant dying of starvation. Food is there, and one need not bother about it. If the brain should be taxed, it should be taxed for Krishna or God. This is the proper utilization of time. There is no scarcity of bread in the kingdom of God.
तस्यैव हेतु प्रायतेत को विदो न लभ्यते यद ब्रह्मतम उपर्यद्या. Srimad Bhagavatam says that one should try to attain that which cannot be attained by traveling all over the universe. What is that? Kevalya Bhaktya, pure devotion. By God's arrangement, there is sufficient food, land, prospects for food on this planet, but we have arranged things in such a way that in one part of the world people are suffering, and in another part they are throwing grains in the ocean. The Vedas say eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. The Supreme Person is supplying food to many living entities. The difficulty in this material world is that we take more than we need. and thus create our own problems. Problems are created by men, led by the so-called politicians. According to nature's law or God's law, everything is complete. According to Sri Upanishad, Om Purnam Adha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Shishyate. The personality of God is perfect and complete. And because of this, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanates from him, he remains the complete balance. Shri Upanishad Education Mantra. God is complete, his creation is complete, and his arrangements are complete. But we are creating disturbances. Real education is that which makes people Krishna conscious, so that they will properly utilize the resources of the earth and stop creating disturbances. It is not possible to solve problems by passing resolutions in the United Nations. We must know the actual method of solving problems.
Yes, sir. Sukadeva Goswami says that simply by pure devotional service, one can solve the problems of life. Who can do this? It is not possible for an ordinary man, but for those who are Vasudev Parayanaha, devoted to Lord Krishna, Vasudev. Only those whose concern is to satisfy Krishna and who take to pure unalloyed devotion service can solve problems of life. Yes, please.
Agam Dhanvanti has already explained. Problems are created by sinful activities. Although there is enough food, everyone stocks more than is needed in order to make a profit or simply in order to hoard. In 1942 in India, there was an artificial famine created by people gathering money and stocking it unnecessarily. Wealthy men collected rice which are selling at 6 rupees a pound, and suddenly within a week the prices rose to 50 rupees a pound. Consequently, no rice was available on the market, and the people went hungry. An American gentleman present at the time remarked, if people in our country were starving in this way, there would have been a revolution. The people in India, however, are so trained in culture that in spite of this artificial famine, they do not revolt, but prefer to die peacefully. Of course, this is only one instance, but it shows how problems are not created by God, but by man. In Germany, during the First World War, the women went to church and prayed to God to send their husbands and sons and brothers back safely, but none of them came back. All of the women became atheists. They do not consider the God. They do not consider that God did not advocate the war and its problem. They went to him for a solution, but we cannot create our own problems. We have to suffer the result.
It is a fact, however, that the problem of one who takes to the shelter of Krishna, God, are solved for this reason. If for one another, for one, for none other, one should apply his devotional service to Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudev Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. If one engages in devotional service to Vasudev, he will receive the highest knowledge without delay. Janati Asu Vairagyam. The words Jnana Vairagyam refers to that knowledge by which one becomes detached from material allurement. The word Jnana means knowledge and Vairagyam means detachment. Both knowledge and detachment are required in this human form of life. One should know I am a spirit soul. I have nothing to do with this material world, but because I have a desire to enjoy it in different ways, I am transmigrating from one body to another. I do not know when this began, but it is still going on. This is real knowledge. To be knowledgeable, one must understand his constitutional position and realize how he is suffering in this material world. That that's perfection of knowledge. Uh, that perfection of knowledge comes when one becomes Vasudev Priya, Priya, Parayan, devoted to Lord Vasudev. In Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjun, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanvan Mam Prapadyate Vasudev Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all cause and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Those great souls who know perfectly well that Krishna Vasudev is the source of everything are very rare. It is easy to find so-called Mahatmas, great souls, with long beards and mustaches, who tells everyone that they are one with God, and that when they die, they will wake up and become God. But these are not really Mahatmas. Rather, they are Duratma, hard-hearted, because they want to encroach on the rightful position of Krishna and become one with him. If there were a servant in the office who tried to occupy the position of employer, would the employer like it? Similarly, any living entity who is trying to become God is not very much to God's liking. Of course, no one can become God, but this endeavor to become God of his competitor is not very pleasing to him. Person who try are described in Bhagavad-Gita as Divsada, Divis, Duisata, envious. The Lord says, Tan aham Duisata Kuruna, Sams, Samsaresu Nardhama, Nardhaman, uh, Shipyami Asram Ashubhan, Asrusya Eva Yonisu. Envious, mischievous, the lowest of mankind. These two, these two I ever put back into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Bhagavad Gita 16.19.
Long paragraph. Correct, Mataji?
They are put into hellish conditions because they are envious of God's position. First, they try to occupy high positions in the material world, and when they are frustrated in this attempt, they think, now I shall occupy the position of God. Of course, this desire is also frustrated because no one can become God. God is God, and the living entity is the living entity. God is supreme and infinite. We are infinitesimal. Our position is to serve God. And when we act according to our position, we become happy. By imitating God, happiness cannot be obtained. Yes, Yayaka, Nisvasita, Kalam, Astvalambya, Jivanti, Lomba Vilaja, Jagat Anant Natha, BS 5.48. There are innumerable universes, and within one breath of the Mahavishnu, these universes are inhaled and dissolved within this body. How then can a living entity become God? God is not so cheap. Therefore, we must become advanced in knowledge and accept Vasudeva, Krishna as the Supreme. There is no question of Krishna being a man. At no stage in his appearance on earth did he appear as an ordinary living entity. Even as a baby, he performed miraculous feats way beyond the abilities of the ordinary living entity. One should not consider that when he is surrendering to Krishna, he is surrendering to an ordinary man, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, but to this, indeed, indeed, that is confirmed by all Vedic literatures. Agam Dunvanti. All reactions to sinful activities are cancelled when one surrenders to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself advised personal surrender to him. Sarvdharma parate jai mam ekam sarvana vraja aham tavam sarva papebhyo mokshami ma sacha. Give up all varieties of religiousness and just surrender unto me. And in return, I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Therefore, you have nothing to fear. Bhagavad Gita 18.66.
Therefore, one who is a devotee, Vasudeva Parayana, and who simply engages in devotional service is immediately freed from all sinful activities. Devotional service to Krishna or Krishna consciousness can never be attained by any amount of speculation, but by the causeless mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna. It is a matchless gift bestowed by the Mahatma or great soul out of compassion for fallen living entities. It is said that by the grace of Krishna, one gets a guru or a spiritual master, and by the grace of the spiritual master, one gets Krishna. This is like the gift of the sunrise. At night there is darkness, but in the morning, as soon as the sun rises, immediately millions of miles of darkness are removed. In the same way, if we try to make the Son of Krishna rise within our heart, all of our problems will be solved.
There is one more chapter. This is liberation in Krishna consciousness. If we simply worship the original person, Adi Purusham, we need not fear being misled by anyone. Srila Swami, the original commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, explains that one can reach the perfection of life simply by devotional service, Kevalya Bhaktya. One need not be dependent on any other process. Sukdev Goswami says that one can put an end to material life by one stroke, Kevalya. There is no need to first undergo severe penance and austerity, practice celibacy, control the mind and the senses, give in charity, perform great sacrifices, and become very truthful and clean. Simply by one stroke, by accepting Krishna consciousness, one immediately rises to the highest position. By just taking to Krishna consciousness, one develops all transcendental qualifications. The goldsmith uses a small hammer and taps the gold many times, but the blacksmith uses a large hammer and with one stroke, his job is finished. This is the blacksmith's method. We take the big hammer of Bhakti Yoga and finish all material life. There is no need to undergo the many lesser disciplines nor to follow any other process. In actuality, there is no possibility of even following the other Vedic processes to perfection. For instance, the Hatha Yoga process would say you have to become a strict brahmachari and sit in the forest with your body at a right angle to the ground, brushing your nose with your finger for 6 months. Who could follow such an instruction? Since such a method is not practical in this present age, the goldsmith method has to be discarded. The solution is to take the blacksmith's hammer of Krishna consciousness and finish off all sinful reactions immediately.
Yes, sir. By devotional service, one has to become Vasudeva Parayana, a devotee of Lord Vasudeva or Lord Krishna. In other words, we have to learn how to become lovers of Vasudeva. If the world takes up this Krishna consciousness, the planet is certain to be peaceful. Now the earth is quickly become a hellish planet, and if the Krishna consciousness is not taken up, this hellish condition will progress despite all advance in education and economic development. Therefore, those who are thoughtful should take this movement very seriously and try to understand its value. It is not something manufactured by one man or a group of disciples. It is authoritative and age old, based on the Vedic literatures which date back thousands of years. Yes, Prabhuji.
Ishu Prabhu?
Ishu Prabhuji have left for temple. Yes.
Oh, okay. Deepak Prabhu?
Niharam eva bhakshakra. Bhaskara refers to the sun. The sun immediately dissipates mist or fogs as well as darkness. As stated before, we should try to make the sun of Krishna rise within our hearts. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, also it is stated that Krishna is like the sun and the Maya, and that Maya, the illusionary energy, is darkness. Yaha Krishna taha nahi Maya radhika. As soon as the son of Krishna is present, the darkness of Maya immediately disappears. Without following this process, it is very difficult to overcome the ocean of darkness Maya. If we simply teach people to surrender onto Krishna, God, all the fog and mist of illusion will disappear. The method is very simple. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Thank you, Deepak Prabhu.
The more one
Hare.
wants, the more the darkness of many lives is dissipated. Cheto Darpan Marjanam. By chanting, one can cleanse the dust from the mirror of his mind and perceive things very distinctly. Thus, one will what he is, what God is, and what this world is, what our relationship with God in the world is, how to live in this world, and what our next life is. Such knowledge is not taught in schools where one is taught how to manufacture or acquire products for sense gratification. There is always a hard struggle going on involving men's attempt to dominate material nature. However, for every convenience, sorry,
Hare.
he manages to produce, there is an inconvenience accompanying it. For example, recently some engineers designed an airplane which can fly at great speeds without danger. When the plane flies, however, it breaks windows all over the city. Our time is thus being wasted in constructing so many devices which give us temporary and artificial convenience at the price of an appropriate amount of inconvenience. This is all part of the law of karma, the law of action and reaction. For whatever we do, there must be a reaction by which we become entangled. That is stated in Bhagavad-Gita. Yajna tat karmano nyatra lokayam karma bandhana tad artham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachra. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain unattached and free from bondage. Bhagavad Gita 3.9. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When one acts for sense gratification, work entangles him, whether the work be good or bad. But if one works for Krishna, yajnartha karmano, he will be free regardless of the possible desirability of his work.
Thank you. Not only does Sukadeva Goswami recommend unalloyed devotional service, but he further says that by devotional service, one's sinful activities will be negated. Every one of us is more or less sinful. For if we were not sinful, we would not have been put into material bodies. As soon as one is free from sinful life, he is liberated and transferred to the spiritual world, in the spiritual body. The whole process is to cleanse oneself from the contamination of sinful or material life.
Yes, Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, those who are sinful can become purified from contamination by tapa adibhi, practicing austerity." Sukadeva also said that, however, that no one can become completely purified by executing the process of austerity. There are many examples of yogis who practiced austerities but did not emerge completely pure. Vishwamitra Muni, for example, was a Kshatriya who wanted to become a Brahmana and therefore began to practice austerity. Later on, however, he became a victim of Menka, a society girl of the heavenly planet. Because Vishwamitra was not pure, he became entangled with her and begot a child. Therefore, it is said that even if one performs austerities and penances, world circumstances are so implicating that somehow or other they will involve one again and again in the material modes of nature. There are many examples of sannyasis who give up the world, renouncing it as false, saying, "Let me turn to Brahmana," but they again become entangled in the work of the world when they set up hospitals and perform philanthropic work and welfare activities. If the world is false, why they are attracted to welfare activities? The philosophy of Krishna consciousness maintains that this world is not false, but it is temporary. God created this world and he is true. So how can his creation be false? Because this is the creation of God and God is the absolute truth, this creation is also true. We simply see it otherwise due to illusion. The world is fact, but it is temporary. The world is a fact, but it is a temporary fact. Yes,
A person may
We'll
claim.
stop. Deepak, we will stop here. 7:59. We'll discuss
Okay.
few minutes. So we'll stop here. Let me just mark the line where to start from. Yeah, we can discuss some question, comments, realizations now. Is it Ownership?
yes, एक ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग आई कि मतलब अगर हम कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस में मतलब अगर हम कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस में कुछ भी एक्टिविटी करते हैं, being staying in Krishna consciousness, it does not have any consequence. But अगर हम संसार में कुछ भी एक्टिविटी करते हैं, अगर हम कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस में एंगेज नहीं और मेटेरियली कुछ भी परफॉर्म करते हैं मेटेरियल प्लेटफॉर्म, तो उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज हैं जो हमें बेयर करने पड़ेंगे. तो तो मतलब कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस इज अ वेरी सेफ पाथ, एंड मतलब we should keep our activities. We should do our activities, whatever we are doing, from earning bread to living. We should keep Krishna in center of all the activities.
Nice point to that one.
Yes,
Very
Prabhuji.
nice point. Amazing.
यस प्रभु एंड सेकंड एक इसमें एक इंस्टेंस बताया था जिसमें क्रिश्चियन वुमेन्स थी, उनके हस्बैंड वॉर से वापस नहीं आए तो दे बिकम अथीस्ट। तो ये मतलब एक क्वेश्चन है कि कुछ लोगों का इतना बड़ा लॉस हो जाता है उनके अकॉर्डिंग लाइफ में कि वो लोग अथीस्ट हो जाते हैं। वो कहते हैं कि मतलब भगवान ने हमारे साथ बहुत बुरा किया, हमने किसी को क्या किया ना, तो इस वजह से वो अथीस्ट हो जाते हैं। तो उस केस में मतलब अगर हमसे कोई डिस्कस कर रहा है ऐसी चीज, तो हमें हमारा क्या एटीट्यूड होना चाहिए और मतलब क्या उसमें मतलब एक समझा सकते हैं उसको।
प्रभुपाद तो यही बताए हैं कि भाई वी क्रिएट आवर ओन प्रॉब्लम्स एंड देन वी आर सॉल्यूशन फॉर इट। तो जो भी अतीस्ट बना है उसको देख ये देखना पड़ेगा कि वो क्यों बना है। जैसे इस केस में हम देखते हैं कि वॉर तो अपने ही कारण हुआ है। वॉर तो ऐसा नहीं है कि भगवान ने कुछ वॉर बनाया है करके जिसकी वजह से प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है। तो आई थिंक एक बार वो ज्ञान हम लोगों को देंगे तो वहां से उनको लेके जाया जा सकता है ऊपर। बट एक बार किसी का फेथ अथिस्ट बन जाता है तो थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है उसको ऊपर लाना। मैंने जनरली देखा है कि मायावादी फिर भी कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं, बट अथिस्ट का फेथ कुछ ज्यादा ही स्ट्रांग होता है कि भगवान नहीं है। तो इट्स ओके। थैंक यू दित्तू। You all right, Anshu Mataji? You wanna share something, Anshu Mataji?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु, सॉरी प्रभु, वो गलती से ऑन हो गया था।
हाँ, कोई नहीं, टेक केयर। कनक माताजी, दीपक को, you have anything to discuss?
यस प्रभु जी, मतलब वो पॉइंट अच्छा लगा था जैसे रूपा जी बताते हैं कि हाउ वी आर डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द एनिमल एंड व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ लाइफ, दैट मतलब हमें सिंपली चैंट हरे कृष्णा महामंत्र को चैंट करके हम ये सारी प्रॉब्लम से जो भी हम क्रिएट करते हैं और जिसके एडवांसमेंट के और जिसके सॉल्यूशन के लिए हम ढूंढते रहते हैं इधर उधर, तो उन सब चीज़ों से हम ऊपर आ सकते हैं। मतलब हम अपने लाइफ को एक अच्छे लेवल पे लेकर जा सकते हैं जहाँ पे हम साइलेंटली पीसफुली हम मतलब सिर्फ चैंट हरे कृष्णा चैंटिंग महामंत्र चैंट करने से और सिंपली हम अपनी लाइफ बिता सकते हैं, भगवत धाम जा सकते हैं। मतलब डायरेक्टली बताते हैं कि कैसे ये हाईएस्ट है, मतलब भक्ति योग के बारे में बता रहे थे, ये इट इज द हाईएस्ट पाथ। एग्जांपल भी दिया था ब्लैक स्मिथ और गोल्ड स्मिथ का, जस्ट हिटिंग वन स्ट्रोक।
गुरुपाद बिगनिंग में वो पॉइंट भी तो बताते हैं कितना अच्छा है इसमें कि कितना हार्ड लेबर करना पड़ रहा है हम लोगों को। 30-40 माइल दूर जाते हैं ड्राइव करके जस्ट टू अर्न अवर डेली ब्रेड। और चिड़िया कबूतर देखो जंगल में रहते हैं तो इतना स्ट्रगल ही नहीं, भरा पड़ा है जंगल फूल फलों से, एक पेड़ से दूसरे पेड़ पर अपना काम होता है। अब हम क्यों जा रहे हैं, एक तरह से कोई बोले तो ठीक है ना जाए, फिर कोई कहेगा ना कि ठीक है ऑफिस ना जाए, फिर ना खाएं 2 रोटी। पॉइंट यहाँ पे ये बता रहे प्रभुपाद कि हम लोगों ने अननेसेसरली कॉम्प्लिकेटेड कर दिया है। अगर हम देखें तो कुछ साल पहले तक भी लोग खेतों पे चले जाते थे, अपना घर से निकले खेतों पे चले गए, कुछ उगाया, अपना गुजर बसर चल रहा है आराम से। आज हम लोगों का क्या है, हार्ड स्ट्रगल शुरू हो गया है, इतना दूर जाना पड़ रहा है। तो वो पॉइंट है अभी, क्योंकि वैसा सोसाइटी बन गई है तो जाना तो पड़ेगा ही। बट जो रूट है प्रॉब्लम का वो समझना पड़ेगा कि वो हम ही लोगों ने ही ये कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी क्रिएट की है जस्ट आउट ऑफ ग्रीड, मोर एंड मोर एंड मोर। बात कह नहीं रहे कि एक जगह पे तो भुखमरी आ रही है, एक जगह पे प्रॉब्लम ही प्रॉब्लम, दूसरी जगह पे इतना ज्यादा है कि आप ग्रेन्स को ओशंस में फेंक रहे हो। अपने यहाँ भी तो हुआ है काफी टाइम, जो महाराष्ट्र साइड पे कि गेहूं की बोरियां फेंक देते हैं, सड़ जाता है इतना ज्यादा गेहूं एक जगह। और दूसरी जगह इंडिया में देखो तो गेहूं के प्राइस बढ़ रहे हैं, तो वहां पे लोग बोल रहे हैं कि अरे हम कैसे करेंगे, कैसे खाएंगे। It's all out of grade. Thank you, Deepak. Kanak Mataji, you want to share something?
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I like that point. Like whatever God has created is perfect, and whatever human is creating the inconvenience with convenience. Like, matlab, God has created everything so perfectly. There is no any flaw. But whatever human is creating is causing damage to human life. That I really
पर
like.
अब इसमें ना एक पॉइंट आया था, मैं उसमें पढ़ते सोच रहा था कि जैसे मान लीजिए कि ये संसार क्रिएट हुआ ना, तो कोई कहेगा कि अरे ईशोवास्य एकदम सर्वम यत्किंच, ये तो मतलब आप बोल रहे सब परफेक्ट है, बट यहाँ तो दुखी दुख बड़े बड़े, ये परफेक्ट कैसे हैं? ये क्वेश्चन आता है ना?
हाँ प्रभु जी, मतलब ये फिर हमारा लास्ट क्लास में भी इसका डिस्कशन रह गया था कि
Okay.
अगर सब परफेक्ट है तो हम लोग इम्परफेक्ट क्यों है, हमें भी तो भगवान ने बनाया, जब हम इसका डिस्कशन कर रहे थे। ये हमारा
मतलब
डिस्कशन
उसका फिर ये होता है कि जो प्रोडक्ट जिस चीज के लिए बनाया है ना, वो उसमें परफेक्ट है, तो ये बनाया ही संसार दुखालयम शाश्वतम के लिए है, तो उस सेंस में परफेक्ट है, दुखी दुख भरे पड़े मतलब यहाँ पे। हाँ मतलब जैसे वॉशिंग मशीन है ना, वो कपड़े धोने के लिए ही बनाई गई है, उस सेंस में ये परफेक्ट है। तो ये जो संसार है, इसमें जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि का जो दुख है वो डाल दिया गया है, उस सेंस में परफेक्ट है। आप देखो दुखी दुख है, जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि चारों कितने बड़े दुख है। तो बात रही हम लोगों की, तो हम लोग उस सेंस में परफेक्ट है कि वी आर पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ कृष्णा, सो लाइक कृष्णा वी आर आल्सो सच्चिदानंद, बट बिकॉज वी आर कंडीशनड बाय थ्री मोड्स ऑफ मटेरियल नेचर, वी आर सफरिंग इन दिस मटेरियल वर्ल्ड। करेक्ट ना?
राइट
प्रोडक्ट परफेक्ट है, पैकेजिंग एकदम प्रॉपर हुई है, पूरे दुख मिल रहे हैं। देख लो ना, अभी हर फैमिली में, मेरे यहाँ पे मेरी तबीयत खराब है, वाइफ की तबीयत खराब है, जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि सब फंसे पड़े हैं इसमें।
हाँ जी प्रभु जी, मतलब कहीं भी हम देख लेना, कोई भी खुश नहीं है, मतलब टेम्परेरी चीजों में इतनी ज्यादा हैप्पीनेस ढूंढने की कोशिश करता है, अच्छा ये ले आए तो इससे खुश हो जाएंगे, बट वो क्या होता है, वो थोड़े टाइम बाद वो चीज ऐसी पड़ी रहती है, देन वी नीड समथिंग एल्स आल्सो। मतलब कि हम लोग बहुत ज्यादा कब, मतलब टेम्परेरी है बहुत ज्यादा हैप्पीनेस, अभी किसी की तबीयत खराब है, किसी से भी बात कर लो, अभी ये हो रहा है, अभी वो हो रहा है, मतलब नो वन इज हैप्पी इन दिस, मतलब किसी भी सिचुएशन में।
तो जो गौर कृष्ण महाराज बताए ना कि सिचुएशन वही है, नीचे सांप है, पीछे ऊपर हाथी है, और चारों तरफ मधुमक्खी काट रही है, उसमें से शहद की बूंद टपक रही है, उसे ही ले लेके हम आनंद महसूस कर रहे हैं। ये नहीं देखते कि खाई में कुएं में गिरे हुए हैं, नीचे सांप है, ऊपर ऊपर हाथी मारने को तैयार है। तो वही सिचुएशन है। यस
Okay, so we'll stop here. Vancha kalpatarubheshya kripa sindhuyevcha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.